Hi, I'm Sarah Bunwell, the editor of fundoperator.com. I'm here with Chris Taylor, Chief Operations Officer at CG Asset Management. Chris is speaking at our Fund Operator Summit in November this year, and ahead of that, we wanted to catch up with him to get a little bit of a flavour of what he's going to be talking about. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Sarah.
So my first question is, what are some of the challenges that fund operators face when they're deciding between, many best of breed solutions versus a kind of all-in-one system?
So I think the first challenge is being honest with yourself. If you look at it in the cold, hard light of day, does your team have the skills you need to integrate a front to back office solution, or are you going to need to hire a consultant? So I think that's the first thing is, can you do it yourself? The second is around retraining. So how many systems and processes are going to change in the front to the back? And are you expecting certain teams to use multiple new systems, or is everybody's going to be making one slight change to their operational workflow? I think the third one would be cost and resource. Do you want to use the resource managing the relationship with multiple service providers, or accept the possible limitations that you're going to have if you take an all-in-one solution? And then the one that is most important for us, well, not most important, it's certainly important for us, is around scale. And as a boutique, is it better to be an important client for one provider or a small client for 5 different providers?
Of course, that makes perfect sense. And obviously the answer to this question is going to be different for every asset manager or fund operator. But what sort of questions can they ask themselves in order to, get into the nitty to work out exactly which approach will suit them best?
I think the first thing is to understand what it is you want to achieve and where you're willing to compromise. A lot of the providers will talk about it being a truly bespoke, customizable system. There is always an advantage for small firms taking an off-the-shelf solution. Where we're dealing with large counterparties, if we come to them and say we've got a bespoke system and we need you to provide it in a certain format, then we come against some challenges. Sometimes it is better for us to be just in everybody else's standard operating model. And as a result, we tend to use established market-leading products that already have the connections to the other counterparties. So we're basically able to stand on the shoulders of giants, if you like. The next thing to think about is who your end users are, because in a small firm, you can count them on one hand. If you've got business functions, however, as we do, which have been outsourced, will they have an appetite to make any changes to their systems? Is there something that ties that to a specific function or a specific system? And then are there any contractual obligations there if you do make any changes? Then there's I suppose as part of the same consideration is how many stakeholders are involved and what's their appetite for change? Different unit heads or different areas, have they recently made changes? Is getting that buy-in from them as well.
Lovely. And thinking about the two approaches, are there any sort of core risks or key drawbacks that you can kind of talk through that people should be aware of when they're making that decision?
Well, the one that I think about is all-in-one systems, in my experience, are quicker in the long run to implement, and they require less project management but more upfront planning. What it tends to mean is that you've got a big bang, so a day of switchover when everything all of a sudden changes. Where the counteract for that is that it may not do exactly what you want it to do. You often compromise on your ability to customize. If you've got specific processes that you need to keep as they are for whatever reason, then it may not necessarily be the solution for you. If, however, you don't need customization, then that shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
On the flip side, with a best-in-class system, they can be quite tricky to integrate with each other. But on the plus side, you can actually implement them modularly. So you can look at various different departments, and you will do one piece as you go along. You don't have that big bang go live date. You can do a lot more checking as you go along, and then you integrate it slowly. You then, with the best-in-class solutions, as I said before, do you want to be a small client for 5 different people or a big client for one? Because you then have to manage those service providers. If you have a system that fails, you have to know how to pinpoint that problem, who's responsible for it, and then you're going to need the in-house resource to manage that process. If you've got an all-in-one service, then you ring one key client, you say this is the problem, and they have all the information they need, they have all the access they need to actually resolve it. So it depends on what it is you want to do.
Of course. Last one from me. You know, obviously onboarding new solutions is always or can be really challenging. You know, what are some of the steps that chief operating officers and ops departments can take to make sure that when they are onboarding these solutions, whichever one they go for, that's a successful process?
I think be clear on what you think the solution will do and what it won't do, so you can manage expectations. I think everyone needs to be clear on that. So communication to all staff on that, and then also what's going to be required of them. So once you've got a rough project mapped out, speak to them to make sure that they have sufficient resource in place to actually assist you with that project, so you can identify any of the bottlenecks well in advance of them coming up. So that's all stakeholders, whether it be the senior management team that are going to need to either sign off resource or time or money, and then also the team leaders that you can speak to make sure that they're actually going to be able to do the work on the ground. And then kind of the sort of the mantra that, if you like, that I always have is plan extensively, test obsessively, and then double the time you've budgeted for snags, because getting it right the first time is going to be the most important thing. Firstly, for an efficiency point of view, but just to keep people's confidence in the new system going. The snagging part is always the bit that, if that continues after the implementation of the project, then frustration builds quite quickly.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been really interesting. I can't wait to hear more about this in depth and loads of other issues at our conference later this year. Thank you, Chris.
Looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.